This episode is sponsored by The Power of You, a leadership resource for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and anyone intent on developing their leadership impact and supercharging their career. For more information, check the podcast webpage or show notes. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. I am your host, Blaine Bartlett. My brother-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law, is a fighter pilot, and he now flies for UPS. But in the day, I had an opportunity when he flew up to the Northwest to actually meet him at the McChord Air Force Base, and got an opportunity to sit inside. He said, "Don't touch anything. Don't touch anything." But you can sit inside this aircraft. So I'm 6'1" and about 200 pounds, and it was a tight fit. It was a very tight fit. And the reason I'm alluding to that right now is there's something about the mindset of a fighter pilot. There's something about the mindset of somebody that is highly skilled in a very technologically advanced environment that sets them apart in terms of how they think and through the process of how they think, actually how they actually perform and how they do what they do. And I've always been fascinated about the transition from a military role into a business role. And people that have made that transition effectively are ones that are able to actually take a skill set and find a home for it in a new environment and be able to leverage it extraordinarily well. And some of the leaders with whom I've worked have military training in their backgrounds. It's either military or sports, at a very high level in sports. So my guest today, and the reason I'm kind of going on and on and on about that, has to do with, my guest today is an ex-fighter pilot. Christian Bou, his call sign Bou, Boucousis, is the CEO of Afterburner Inc. And he's a former fighter pilot, as I mentioned, in the Australian Air Force. And when he mustered out, he founded Afterburner Inc., which is the name of his company, and has just been, quote unquote, burning it up in the motivational space. And I hate to use that word. I absolutely hate to use that word because there's a big distinction in my mind between motivation and inspiration. And motivation is typically organized around what's outside of me. We'll give you a big bonus if you hit this target. So the bonus becomes outside of me. Inspiration is intrinsic. It lives inside me. And if I can tap into, as a leader, if I can tap into that inspirational spark, I don't have to worry about motivation as much. Because that inspirational spark, when it's lit, people will step up, they will step in, and they will find ways to actually get the job done, whatever it may be that they're looking to get done, because it's important to them. It matters. And that's the distinction around motivation and inspiration is when I'm inspired, it really personally matters. Emotional engagement is what has occurred. I now emotionally engaged in whatever it is that we're trying to make happen. So with that kind of abstract, rambling introduction here, I want to welcome Bou to the show, and I'm very much looking forward to a conversation around one of his keynote topics, which he is titled Human 2.0, the Evolution of Thinking. And we're going to start with that, but there's going to be a whole lot of other rabbit holes that we're going to be able to go down as we start having this conversation. So Bou, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Blaine. I really feel honored for the opportunity to have this conversation with you today.
The honor is all mine. I truly mean that. I love learning from people who have been in the seat, and they've got practical experience, and they've been able to deliberately, intentionally translate a skill set, high performance skill set, into different domains, and not only just transfer it, but also teach other people about how to actually leverage it. So I'd be interested, just to start with, Bou, your focus is on leadership and the idea of human 2.0 and evolution in thinking. I'm very clear that everything starts with thinking. Everything. Nothing is manifested in this world without it first being an idea that comes into physical form at some point in time. So Give us 8 bars on this evolution of thinking, the human 2.0. What's behind that? What are you attempting to put in place there?
Simply, we're talking about evolving from linear thinking, which is how humans tend to think, which is here's where I am, here's where I'm going, where the origin of every idea and every thought is yourself, into iterative thinking, which is to say, where am I going? What is the end state I want to be, and how do I evolve the way my brain works? How do I evolve my perspectives and shape myself into who I want to be? And the reason why I personally feel it's an evolution is the world in which we're moving towards, which is this world enabled by data analysis, powered by AI. I mean, Afterburner was actually founded 30 years ago next year by another gentleman called James Murphy, and it was always around execution. It was called flawless execution. Mm-hmm. So I bought the company just under 3 years ago,
okay,
and shifted it into a leadership mindset business. Because the execution side, like the doing work, is really being outsourced into technology, particularly at the level we operate at, which is normally C-suite and below, which is as you said, the big ideas translated into activity and translated into execution. And what's really unique and about my journey with Afterburner is I was a fighter pilot for 11 years in the Australian and the British Air Force, and then I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease and I was booted out. And I had to kind of do something else, and I decided to go into business as a founder. So I've never had a salary job for the last 32 years.
Good for you.
No, sorry, 22 years. 20 years. I'm not very good at math. And, what I had come to appreciate when I was first introduced to this Afterburner brand 10 years ago was all the stuff I learned as a fighter pilot I was using in business, but I was doing it unconsciously. Mm-hmm. And Murph, the founder of Afterburner, was very clever in that he brought intentionality to it and translated the way in which we work and our culture into a method called plan, brief, execute, debrief. But what I always observed in business was, the execution needed a little bit of work, but really it's how do you lead an environment that is performance driven? And the word high performance is a word a lot of people use, but I typically associate high performance with a style of human being who typically has some other things going on that makes them high performing. And often high performance can be a dysfunctional byproduct of a human being. I prefer dynastic performance, which is the models that organizations within high performing frameworks tend to operate to be the best of the best. If you frame that as the Roger Federers, the Michael Jordans, the Chicago Bulls, the Tom Bradys, the Belichicks, the Patriots, Manchester United, these organizations that Real Madrid, that just constantly outperform high performance, because there's a lot of high performance out there that isn't delivering the result. They
right.
In companies, they often call themselves high performance, but when we go in and work with them, we realize that, you're performing better than other people, but technically, if you took a high performance model from the Air Force, you're really not performing at all. And that's not because the world that I came from, fighter pilots, has particularly talented or unique human beings. It's because our performance is the byproduct of a system. And it's a phenomenal system. And it's a system that I've spent the last 10 years deconstructing and trying to understand more deeply, because we built it as a result of people, dying. Right. That's the reality.
Right. Yeah.
And not just in combat, just flying very fast machines that are very complicated, that bite you if you're not paying attention. And our job now at Afterburner is to help connect those dots, because it's not a natural thought process to say, hey, the way fighter pilots do things and the way they think, that's going to be really useful for us, because everyone just looks at Top Gun and watches the movie and goes, that's a great world, but it's got nothing to do with me. So for me, what we do as fighter pilots is we grow every day. You have to grow, and the growth is a very personal journey. Yes, we operate as a team. Yes, we have a lot of organizational support, but the whole system falls apart if the pilot can't grow and develop fast enough. And we call that the accelerated learning curve.
Yeah.
So we try and bring that mindset, which is a way of thinking, which is actually the byproduct of a way of working and a specific cognitive model that helps organizations start to really grow rapidly.
You're talking about the fast airplanes. I'm a pilot, got my ticket back in the 70s. And one of my flight instructors, who was an Air Force pilot, said, as you fly more and more and more, you're going to transition into other aircraft and whatnot. Just be real clear that that you're able to. How did he say it? Don't let the airplane get in front of you. Is basically what he was saying. Don't let the airplane get in front of you. And and what he meant by that was make sure your skills are continuously improving to the point where you're in front of the plane. It's not in front of you. You're the horse, and the sled is behind you, sort of a thing. Because if the plane's in front of you, you will, find yourself in a very compromised position at some point in time. And translate that into business. The pace of change that's going on in business today, particularly when you look at the introduction of AI and the disruption that change is causing, not just from a workflow process, but also to the relational dynamics that are present in every organization. Not just the interpersonal, but my relationship with my work process, my relationship with the vision, goals, objectives, values of our organization. It seems to me in a lot of cases, our organizations are getting in front of our leaders. The pace of change is so fast that they're getting in front of the leaders that are, Henry David Thoreau, long time ago, obviously a long time ago, because it was Thoreau, said, never look back unless you're planning to go that way. And to me, that seems to be a kind of a default for most leaders, is that they will look to the past to kind of get a sense of where do I go next. And that puts the organization in front of me real quickly if I'm continuously looking in the rearview mirror. Where does your work, and I'm going to kind of go back in here, flawless execution, and I'm going to take this directly, and folks, you need to go to his website, and I'll give you the URL on this. There's some fascinating information there. But the world of flawless execution, and I remember Larry Bossaday over at Allied Signal years ago said execution is everything. Execution is everything. An agile methodology perfected by fighter pilots over 6 decades to elevate performance to unprecedented level. Flawless execution. So what are some of the elements of flawless execution that as a leader I need to be paying attention to and finding ways to actually steep myself in?
Well, first of all, you've got to understand what flawless means.
It's not perfect.
And when we articulate flawless, we mean the pursuit of perfection, but understanding it's non-attainable. And
right.
Vince Lombardi very famously quoted that very concept when I'm paraphrasing, perfection is unattainable, but through the pursuit of perfection, we catch excellence. And what's really interesting when we talk about flawless with organizations, they think it's something that's unattainable, right? Now, the problem with that is when you set out on a journey to not benchmark that as a standard, you're automatically setting yourself up to make excuses and fall short, right?
Exactly.
So, and to your point, you talk about get ahead of the airplane. Yeah, we that's a very deep philosophy as fighter pilots. It's don't let the airplane fly you. You've got to fly the airplane.
Yeah.
Every 2 seconds in a fighter jet, you're already 18 football fields downrange, and you're making decisions where, and then when someone else is pointing at you, a bad guy, you double that. So you've got to always be thinking in a decision framework of seconds, not hours and days. And when you look, what I've certainly learned in business is, let's go back to flawless first. Otherwise I'll talk for 30 minutes. So flawless execution
I'll have you back on the show.
Yeah. So flawless execution in its first iteration is have a mindset that we're going to try and really get as close to perfect as we can here. And to get close to perfect, you've got to learn. You've got to learn really, really quickly. And to learn really quickly, you need to be intentional about the learning. It's great that you read a lot of books and that we learn general knowledge, that word general knowledge, which is important. But we also need intentional knowledge, and intentional knowledge is knowledge that serves you on your journey to your destination.
Mm-hmm.
And part of being flawless is also to understand that concept, that as a fighter pilot, we don't have goals, we have targets. And the same as an airliner has a destination. When you get on the airplane, it's not a goal. And the human condition is to accept that goals are aspirations that are nice to achieve. And when we have an aspiration, it's very easy to convince yourself it's not that important. So we create this destination mindset, and the destination mindset requires missions, and therefore we talk about missionizing a day, because it's impossible to be everywhere all the time doing everything. And when we talk about missionization, it's real simple. We say, what's your job? What do you achieve each day rather than what you do? So when we start with what do I need to achieve by the end of the day, the mission and the action and the to-do list tends to look after itself. The problem with linear thinking is we're always thinking of what do I need to do? Like we're in ourself. And part of the challenge for the modern leadership framework and why it needs to evolve is it was founded by Frederick Winslow Taylor in 1911 when he wrote the Principles of Scientific Management, right? So the current model is based on humans doing a lot of things. The future model is technology. And if you just project 5 years from now, the forecast is 70% of business decisions will be made by a machine. So if you think about decisions and the work being done by machines, you have to then ask the question, where's the machine going? And that's what flawless execution is building the mission, building the objective, and aligning all the resources, be it technology or humanity, in service to that destination.
You talk about mastering moments in life, and this may seem like a little segue off of where we're at right now, but I think in order for flawless execution, you have to manage the moments that are kind of the arrow of time does move, and all reality is an assembled series of moments that kind of lead to ideally a targeted outcome. Moments that shape our lives. And again, I'm going to pull this off of your website. I mean, and kudos to whoever put your copy together, because it's really well done. The profound concept of moments that shape our lives and businesses, exploring how seemingly small decisions akin to sliding doors can significantly impact our destinies. What are you talking about here? Because I do a whole bunch of work with my clients around decision making and the choices that fall out of the decisions that are made, and how do they fit from a strategic perspective into the outcomes that we're trying to manifest and that sort of thing. So what's your take on these moments that end up shaping our destinies?
So the current state in which we are as a human or an organization is the sum total of every decision that we've made. So when we talk about a moment really defines the time in which that decision's being made.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to master moments, which means we've got to have awareness of when we're in a moment. What we've got to design the moments, which most people call a goal. So if you think about an annual strategy, when you deliver an annual strategy, it's only one moment. It's a split second in time, in which for most companies it's 11:59 and 59 seconds on the 31st of December. And that's it. And then it's
Exactly.
over. Okay. So the achievement of that strategy, depending on the size of the organization, can either be hundreds or thousands of moments or millions or billions of moments. And I think because we don't bring awareness to that, we're not aware that we're in that moment, we lose the opportunity of a moment to make a really great decision, or we bring too much emotion into the moment because it's an unexpected moment.
Yeah.
And therefore, when we look at everything through the lens of a moment, we can start to say to ourselves, oh, I'm in a moment. This is cool. Like, this is the moment I was expecting or I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And this moment requires a decision. And for many of us, our journey in life is analytical. Like, we consume a lot of data. University is designed to promote, or college is designed to promote, looking at a problem from many different lenses. The challenge is execution requires binary thought. Execution requires done, not done. So we have to create a framework in every organization and in our own lives where we take intention and turn it down into moments in which
Bite size it.
Yeah. And this is, to blend into the theme of the podcast, this is where companies and people just tell themselves stories. And if you think of a story in a book, it's full of moments. It's chapters, it's characters experiencing something. But we don't tend, we look at our lives, we don't ever create a book. We don't create chapter 1, chapter 2, which is chapter 1 is 2025. Like what's the plot line of 2025 to get me to the book, and then I'm going to write a sequel, and then there's going to be another book, and then there's going to be another book. So moments is, and I transitioned decision making because decision making sounds too analytical, to make it a little more, what fighter pilots call touchy feely, a little bit more emotive, and that's why I kind of framed it up as a moment. So I'm very aware of regret, where people had a moment but they were afraid, or they took the easy option because they, a little bit like getting ahead of the airplane, they didn't in that moment engineer the next moment. And the challenge about moments is, unless you make decisions, you won't give yourself the opportunity to have another one. And it's okay to have a bad moment. That's fine. That's important, because even a bad moment is a moment of clarity. And it's through the clarity that we make decisions. So if you frame that back to the fighter pilot model, where we create hundreds of moments on a mission, there's the moment that you start the jet. There's the moment you taxi to the runway, the moment that you take off, the moment that you've got to make a decision to shoot a missile. We create this lost opportunity in business where the only moments are the moments in where something goes wrong, or the moment I didn't achieve a sale on a particular call. So part of crafting moments is to say, create lots of moments. Just create lots of them. And every one of those, enjoy the moment. Enjoy the fact that in this moment you have clarity. Bad, good, neutral, and lean into it, and jump from that moment to the next one through some sort of decision, right? And often for men, think of it even in terms of people that are being married, right? There's probably hundreds of moments where people hold their tongue, where people feel some emotional reaction, and lose the moment to connect with their partner, and come at it from a way which is like, I'm having a moment. I'm not feeling good. I'm not saying it's you. I'm not saying it's me, but I want to unpack my feelings right now, so we can get to a better moment on the back of this. And that moment might be a moment of reconciliation, a moment of connection. But to obliviously ignore the moments as they go through just denies you the opportunity to grow as a human being.
Prima facie, I mean, it's the only place that I can actually act is now. That's the only place I can act is now, in the moment.
Exactly.
I'm certain, and I'm making an assessment here, but I'm certain that it's true. So I'm going to position this thing as more of an assertion of truth than anything else. You, as a fighter pilot, you have experienced what you could call a flow state, which is you are in the moment, and that moment expands. You're not. There's not a cognition of anything other than the moment. And then this is the question I have around this: is this something that you trained for as a fighter pilot to more to learn how to be in that flow state and sustain your presence in that flow state, moment to moment to moment to moment? Is that part of the training?
I think we do it without really defining it. We just figured out that you got to do it this way. If you don't want to, if you want the takeoffs and the landings to equal each other, you just have to do it. So,
which is a good equation.
So what we do, I think, look, we used to have this other saying, which was, if I could just put how I performed on that mission in a bottle and open that bottle every time, it would be great. But you couldn't really put your finger on it, because some missions you absolutely crushed it. And then some missions weren't so good. You were still successful, but it felt like you're a little bit behind. So if you think of the first thing we do as fighter pilots is define the important moments on a mission, right? So we define gateways. We define things like commit criteria. When are we going to commit to something on the mission? And drop criteria. When are we going to drop something? And the analogy there for business is we keep committing to things and we never drop things intentionally. They just get dropped because we're too busy, right? Yeah. So the plan, brief, execute, debrief cycle is when you talk about flow state and the time in which we focus. If you think of focus as a concept, to focus, you've got to focus on something. You need something to focus on.
Yes, exactly.
So today with the digital world and being distracted every two and a half minutes, we just constantly lose focus. So the mission, the planning part is defining what it is we're going to focus on. That's the first thing. The brief is to make sure everyone on the mission understands what the focus is. And then the execution is just doing what we agreed we're going to focus on. And we're not going to wander off. We're not going to have some big idea halfway through the mission. We're not going to do any more designing. We're not even going to be thinking. And there's a moment in the Top Gun movie where Maverick says, "If you think, you're dead." There's some nuance to that point. What he's saying is the thinking happens before the mission, and the doing happens on the mission. And then when we finish the mission, we reflect and we ask ourselves, was what we designed to focus on today truly understood by everyone? And if it was, what was it on the personal execution? And we unpick the whole stack, right? So there'll be elements of the planning that maybe weren't on point. There'll be elements of my personal performance that wasn't on point. And through the debrief, I get awareness of that, which means the next day I can take some action to not do it again. And really, when you talk about a lot of people talk about purpose and engaged teams and being emotionally connected. The thing about emotions is they're not designed to be on all the time. That's not what they're for.
Right.
They're designed for a primal version of humanity, which is I make decisions based on emotion. And that's what an emotion is for. So as a fighter pilot, you realize that emotional decisions aren't good. And we have to engineer a different way to make decisions as a human being.
Yep.
So when we talk about the deep flow state that you get as a fighter pilot, it's really easy to get into because of the ritual you follow to get into that state. So if you're in sales, you can plan a call, you can self-brief, or more importantly, bring a wingman onto a call, role play with each other, get on the call. That's the mission. So you just follow the sales script, ask the questions, find out what it is. So the focus of a sales call is for the person on the other side to feel compelled to buy from you. That the focus is them and what their aspiration is and what's in the way, and fix whatever it is that's in the way. From a leader's perspective, if you look at what your focus is, well, your focus is less action-based. Your focus is creating a big focus for your team to design their focus aligned to yours, and then for their team to design the actions that delivers that. So that's, we call it the cascading objectives, where we start with the annual destination, then we move into the quarterly objectives, and then we move into the weekly objectives, and they define the daily actions.
Got it.
That's philosophically, how you create focus is, we say, lose sight, lose the fight. So if you lose sight of the objective, you get lost and you get shot down. So that to us is the key to flawless execution, and the part of an organization that's, I'll be honest, is absolutely woeful in 99.9% of the companies, is they're just really bad at creating the stuff to focus on.
Yeah. Lose sight, lose the fight. I like that. Just a little acronym here. So, kind of a roadmap. If I could summarize this, from a leadership perspective, if I'm looking at high performance execution, I plan, I brief, we perform, and then we review. Kind of, four basic parts.
And review with intention, not just review when something goes wrong, not do one of these post-mortems. And if you think of that word, post-mortem, after death, who wants to do that, right? So you want to frame your reflection as a positive thing, which is engineered towards action, not focused on the mistakes. The mistakes are important, but they're just a platform to define next steps.
Yep. Perfect. And that does set you up for the next step then. If you're And the review is always, in my experience, most useful when it is organized around next steps. When it's organized, yeah, in my language, I call it the for the sake of what. Yeah, that what's the word? Yeah, when I think about the soul of business, yeah, everything that we do in the organization has to, if we're going to be doing this well, be connected in some way, shape, or form to the soul of the business. That blueprint that gives us kind of the way of expressing who we are, because the business is always looking to express itself more fully all the time. And that the soul of the business is the blueprint for what that could be as we move ourselves out here. So part of the review,
that's the problem. I mean, an organization's stories, what they tell themselves is the product of the journey so far. As much as they want to transform and change and do all this nonsense that never really kind of works, or it does work, but it takes forever and everyone hates doing it. Every time you reflect with intention, you slowly morph your story. You evolve it into what you actually want it to be.
Perfect. Boo, where can people find out more about what you and Afterburner are up to? I know that the website, well, I've got your pod kit up here. So
my website is callmeboo.com.
Callmeboo.com.
But our scaled programs, and I've got a whole team of fighter pilots, it's called afterburner.com.
Okay.
And if you go there, we have articulated the full journey to become a flawless leader, from shifting from this overwhelmed, reactive environment that we all live in and that we mimic into this intentional, impactful leader that's actually designing the future and growing themselves and their people on the way to fulfilling their destinies.
Beautiful, beautiful. Folks, you've been listening to, for me, a fascinating conversation with Boucousis. I had it right.
You got it right the first time, mate.
I had it right the first time. Boucousis. Okay. CEO of Afterburner Inc. Check out the website, afterburner.com. There is a wealth, as he was just saying, there's a wealth of information there. I think you will be very pleased. And if you're looking to enhance and improve your leadership expertise and the performance of your team, this is a place that you're going to want to spend some time digging around in, for sure. There's a lot of resource there. So, Boo, again, thank you very much. Folks, you've been listening to The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. I am your host. And as always, I sign off with this admonition. I grew up on a farm. And when you look at nature, when you walk around, you find that there's nothing really serving as a center of accumulation. Everything is, at some way, shape, or form, a center of distribution. And nature abhors accumulation. It doesn't work well long term. You want to find a way to be a center of distribution in your organization, with your company. Give away a hug, give away a smile, give something away, give a little piece of knowledge to somebody who could use it that you're not using right now. Okay. And we will see you on the next episode of The Soul of Business. This episode is sponsored by The Power of You, a leadership resource for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and anyone intent on developing their leadership impact and supercharging their career. For more information, check the podcast webpage or show notes. Hi, I'd like to ask you to do something for me if you wouldn't mind. If you like this episode, I'd like you to not only subscribe on your favorite site, but I'd also like you to give a rating. Ideally, a 5-star rating would be greatly appreciated. But I think more importantly also would be just some comments. That helps with the algorithm and it helps build the audience with this. And more than anything else, if you could invite somebody else to listen, just share this episode with a friend, with a colleague. And I'd like to see how we can grow the soul of business. I think it makes a difference. Thanks.